Senior Trump officials are forcefully defending the president's new travel ban. Sarah, from a legal point of view, looking at all the changes that have been made, will this one stand up in court?
No. Ban number 1, 2, 3, or 10, for as long as it is carving out these countries, which are majority Muslim, I mean almost 100% Muslim. It is an Islamic Muslim ban, and it's based on religion, it's unconstitutional, and it's really un-American because it goes against our fundamental values and beliefs as Americans. And so Mr. Sessions is saying this because apparently there was a report today that Homeland Security through the Justice Department has investigated 300 individuals who are traced to terrorist acts and then to these countries. We don't have findings from these this investigations. Just because there was an investigation doesn't mean that the conclusion is actually there. So there's an issue, and there's an issue because much like some of the other assertions and accusations that we've seen come out from Trump and this administration, there is no evidence to support that these particular countries or nationals from these countries committed terrorist acts on U.S. soil. Not one example has been presented, and that is why the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals couldn't really reconcile this as a national security threat because there's no evidence to support that.
So a fundraising email was sent out shortly after the president signed the executive order. It talks about how this ban will fight radical Islamic terrorism and the president is keeping his campaign promises. So with legal challenges, which are pretty much guaranteed, could this email end up as being evidence in court?
It could, because remember that the justices or judges that are reviewing this are not limited to the four corners of this order. They will look at the totality of the circumstances. They will look at what's missing. And so we did get some indication from the Ninth Circuit Court before on the first ban that, you know, Mr. Trump had made all these assertions throughout his campaign, promising his supporters that he's going to eradicate Islamic terrorism, etc. And so the court actually used that. It's a bell that you cannot unring.
Yeah. One of the big changes, apart from taking Iraq off the list, is that they're allowing people with green cards and existing visas that will not be part of this travel ban. From a legal point of view, how does that impact due process? Because one of the arguments about the other travel ban is that, you know, people within the United States were denied due process because of the initial travel ban.
Well, part of the due process argument had to do with the lack of notice, that this just was effective immediately. And I think that these changes in ban number 2 are very aesthetic and superficial. They do, you know, they are a little bit more narrowly tailored. It was very unfettered in the first ban. And this time around, it seems to be a little bit more narrow, I should say. But at the end of the day, you still have the issue of it being a Muslim ban with no evidence to support why we need this. I just have to say that our doors are not open to anyone who wants to come here. We already have very stringent vetting procedures for people who need visas to come here. I have friends in South American countries who are not Muslim, and they've always had difficulty trying to get a visa to come to the United States. So why do we need this? If we can't have a nexus between terrorist attacks on U.S. soil and, you know, people from these Muslim countries, why do we need this? It's because Donald Trump promised his supporters that he was going to wage a war on Islam and Muslims.
Okay, well, the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, he says that this new travel ban, unlike the old travel ban, will actually stand up in court. This is what he said.
The Department of Justice believes that this executive order, just as the first executive order, is a lawful and proper exercise of presidential authority.
Just to the first part of what Jeff Sessions said, if the first travel ban stood up and was lawful, then why did they walk away from it?
Well, it wasn't.
But he seems to think it was.
Right. He's saying from the perspective of the Department of Justice, it was lawful, but he needs to respect the Ninth Circuit Court's decision that that was not a proper ban. It was not about national security because the court took into consideration all of the things that went on during the campaign that were about an anti-Muslim type of regime that Donald Trump was starting. And I think also Jeff Sessions this is coming right after last week's, you know, issue with the recusal and him being forced to recuse himself from the Russian connection investigation. So this is nice to kind of have him do this business as usual. The Department of Justice gives him the stamp of approval on the ban.
I just wanted to, by taking out the reference to minorities, Christian minorities and other minorities, by including or taking out green card holders and visa holders, in your opinion, it still makes it unlawful, but does it make it a harder case to prove that it's unlawful?
I don't think think so, because the real issue to me, the big defect, is the fact that it is religion-based.
Right.
That's the biggest defect, and that's not gone away, because we've got 6 countries that are almost 100% Muslim, and that's the big issue here. And we don't have any evidence of the need for this to protect our national security.